Hello, and welcome to Coffee with Cohen. Today is Tuesday, August 26th. I'm broadcasting to you live from my home in Hoboken. Welcome to this, my 111th Coffee with Cohen community event. Just want to check and make sure that everything is going okay on the live stream. I think, okay, let's see. I think it is. Okay. I'm broadcasting today from my home. Looks good. Uh, this is my opportunity to keep in touch with you about important issues affecting our community. Thanks so much for joining me, whether you're joining me live or whether you're joining me on my Facebook page where I'll be hosting this event. Today, I am pleased to welcome a special guest to Coffee with Cohen, Caleb Stratton. Caleb is the City of Hoboken's Chief Resiliency Officer and Business Administrator. And Caleb, I'd just like to give a little bit of your bio. I think I've got this right. I know you've been busy, but let me see if I got it. Caleb started work in Hoboken in 2012 as a principal planner. That's 13 years ago. And then became our Chief Resiliency Officer in 2017. And that's what we're going to be talking about most today. Uh, since 2019, Caleb has taken on responsibilities as both a business administrator and chief resiliency officer. He earned his bachelor's degree in urban planning from the University of Albany and holds a master's in science from Bernard and Ann Spitzer School of Architecture at the City College of New York. Caleb, welcome to Coffee with Cohen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation. Looking forward to it.
Great. I know you're busy, so thanks for making the time to be here. Caleb, while you wear many hats, and I mentioned some of them in my intro, I think the hat you've worn the longest is the hat of Chief Resiliency Officer of the City
Sure.
of Hoboken. And today I'd really like to focus on the status of some major resiliency projects in the city, primarily Rebuild by Design, but there's a few others I want to talk about as well. For those of you who have forgotten, uh, I know you haven't, Caleb, but this is what Hoboken looked like on October 30, 2012. This is Superstorm Sandy. This is a look, let's look up Observer Highway, looking right
Bill,
down the center.
do you know what's interesting about this picture? And
Yeah.
something I like to highlight is that we did not have angled parking on Observer Highway. So all of those vehicles were moved by floodwaters, and they're all moved at that angle because of the amount of water and the velocity of the water
That's amazing.
moving through the city.
That is amazing. That really is amazing. Uh, and I'm just going to show a few more pictures of what that time looked like. This is, I guess, looking down Second Street uh, from Washington. Yeah, yeah.
This is looking down Clinton to Second
Oh,
Street.
Clinton. Okay.
I lived on this block during Sandy, and the reason I know that this is Second and Clinton is because that was the Grimaldi's awning next to the ambulance there, and you could get a pizza and a carafe of wine for like $25, which I did at least
Oh
once,
yeah.
at least once a week.
There's the awning. Yep. Yep. Here's another one over by the firehouse. Uh, over here. Welcome to Hoboken. Uh, so that's where we were. And since October 2012, Hoboken has continued to make major investments in resiliency infrastructure for the long term, and most notably, the Rebuild by Design, which was conceived as a comprehensive initiative to safeguard Hoboken from the threat of flooding, which stands out as a monumental undertaking. And this is a screen grab from the New York Times story, which I believe you were interviewed in, from the chief architect critic of the New York Times, who did a deep dive into what the city of Hoboken has done uh, to address resiliency, and that story contrasted some recent heavy rains and tropical storms impact on New York City and Hoboken just across the river, but with Hoboken faring much, much more resiliently and better.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if you could give us an update, Caleb,
Sure.
on generally, and I'm going to have some specific questions about, specific things, but, maybe sort of an overview of where we stand on rebuild by design and our efforts.
Of course. So, one of the questions that you didn't ask, but I think that it's important for your audience is like, what is a chief resilience officer? That's kind of an ambiguous term. So
Yeah.
I'm responsible for what I would consider to be like our capital programs, policy and strategy that reduces the impacts of climate related events on people's lives. And so that in two different ways, we categorize that where a hurricane might be a shock and rainfall might be a stress. And so my responsibility as chief resilience officer is reducing the friction of those events. So that's energy. So we rebuilt substations to make sure that the power stays on. It's rebuilding our city's infrastructure to better manage what we see as a changing and more dynamic environment. Like if you go through Hoboken's history, it was swampland surrounding an island in the Hudson River. It industrialized and had a working waterfront. Went through a post-industrial, what I would say, revitalization of the city, and now we have like a recreational waterfront, a lot of residential density in the city, and now we're in this next period where we are making generational investments in city systems, water infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, flood mitigation infrastructure. And the flood mitigation infrastructure piece is really important because Rebuild by Design was the comprehensive water management strategy. It was funded by the federal government. The city of Hoboken put money in a pot with our open space trust fund, with bonding, capital funding from the city, and how you're seeing that manifest right now is a series of parks. In fact, I think that we're going to have a ribbon cutting on our fourth resiliency park next week.
Southwest Resiliency Park, right?
Southwest Resiliency Park.
Yep.
And when we talk about Rebuild by Design as a framework, it's really four water management strategies: resist, delay, store, and discharge. Delay, store, and discharge are what you see in parks, and the Northwest Park specifically is an example of you have rain gardens that delay water from entering the sewer system. You have a massive underground tank that can store water below the park. And then you have the H6 pumping station, which is 20 million gallon per day pumps that will dewater the entire north end of the city of Hoboken. I think that your constituency, your neighborhood is probably experienced a lot of the frustrations associated with construction impacts and rerouting. And I just want to be very conscious of the fact that it is residents that are experiencing those short-term impacts right now, but there's a long-term purpose behind it. So the work that's occurring outside of ShopRite is elevating Madison Street. And, news crews would get sent from across the New York region to basically get B-reel in Hoboken at 9th and Madison. They're never going to be able to do that again. It's repitching the sewer lines underneath that roadway. It's rebuilding our water mains. I think that Hoboken has a history of water main breaks that's like kind of tongue in cheek. But the city took over the water utility again. I think that was 5 or 6 years ago now. And we're investing millions of dollars every year on rebuilding water mains. So to get back to Rebuild by Design, I'm sorry, the delay, store, discharge
That's okay.
strategy.
I just want to say on the water main breaks and the flooding on ShopRite, we're going to talk more about Madison Street infrastructure later.
Yeah.
But and I saw Madison Street is open, which is
Right.
great,
Right.
which is news today. But when I see News 12 New Jersey reporting on water main breaks, at least this year, they pretty much haven't been in Hoboken. They've been other communities. I mean, we may have had one. Yeah, but it was, you were saying kind of like a, tongue in cheek, and they send the news crew over to ShopRite if there's heavy rains in the area. I also think that there is an assumption if there's a water main break in New Jersey happening here in Hoboken as well. And I think that the rate of the infrastructure failures on the water mains is slowing significantly. I don't know if
materially reduced. And I think that we can talk about our water infrastructure in more depth, but we've done pressure reducing valves. We have advanced leak notifications. We're rebuilding water mains. We're aware of the pain points in our system and we're working to address them. And that is the idea of resilience. So what is resiliency in Hoboken? It's not having to suffer through a water main break and distribute water bottles. If you remember Hurricane Ida, we had basically a hurricane and a water main break occur at the same time,
Yeah.
and it's very chaotic for the community to be under a boil water advisory. So those are the indicators that we use. Like there's key performance indicators that we have. Are we reducing water main breaks? Is the security of our system improving? And we have goals associated with them. And so Rebuild by Design, there's two specific goals with Rebuild by Design. So we're reducing rainfall related flood events by 90%. So we're hitting that target right now. So in years past, and we've been tracking this information with North Hudson Sewage Authority since 2017, we know for a fact that we are going to be able to manage 90% of rain events with the infrastructure that we've installed right now. And we're still building on that infrastructure. In fact, I think that the city council bonded last week to do our 5th resiliency park at 800 Monroe. So there is a certain just profile of rain events. If we get 5 inches of rain, we are going to have flooding in certain areas of Hoboken because it's a low-lying coastal city. But what we're seeing based on the investments is we have not had a single rain event during that period of time that has lasted for more than one tide cycle. And that's really important because that gets into reducing the disruption times. So if we can reduce the disruption times, so maybe it floods a little bit, maybe it floods 6 inches or 12 inches, but it's not getting into people's buildings, then we're actually reducing the extent of flooding and the impact of that flooding on people's lives. So we're hitting that 90% metric for rainfall event, and then Rebuild by Design is also shooting to reduce coastal flooding by 90%. And that's a lot of the construction activities you're seeing at the north and south end of town, where right now it looks like a lot of concrete walls or open excavations. But the end state of that is to create an urban amenity that blends in with the community through a park at Harborside, but then also landscaping, lighting, material treatments, so that it is clear that there's a flood protection structure and a plan in place to reduce flooding, like what's on this image right now.
Yeah.
But also something that doesn't disrupt access to the waterfront, which was a big point of feedback that we had during the Rebuild by Design project, and also something that blends into the neighborhood to some degree and becomes something that functions within the city, and that 99% of time where we're not going to be using it as a flood protection measure.
Yeah, one of the reasons I just pulled this picture up is because you mentioned in the beginning, resiliency includes power resiliency. And just as a reminder to folks who are looking at these images, you'll see that the traffic lights are all off, that the building has no power. There was no power to the city of Hoboken for a week. For an entire week. People were moving out of the community to live with their parents. Food was spoiling in stores. There were days that they were cold. It was October, November, and it was truly an epic disaster for our city. And point that I wanted to make is that we have changed we work with PSE&G on our substation, including the one in the Northwest, in the 5th ward that I represent, to elevate them so that that they will not be vulnerable to this kind of flooding as well.
It goes, I would say, 2 steps further than that. So we actually consolidated. So there were 3 substations on grade in the floodplain. We've consolidated into 2 substations that are above the floodplain, rebuilt 69 kV, which is our medium distribution network, new aerial overhead. And the big kicker is they replaced all the natural gas mains in town with modern, it was cast iron, now it's high density plastic. And PSE&G hasn't had a service disruption in that high pressure gas in like 100 years. So that means that, and we also haven't had a citywide power disruption since we did those consolidation and elevations of those substations. So that gets back into business continuity and return to life. So maybe there would be minor street flooding from a rain event, but we're not losing power. And that's, I think, really important because power is communications, power is refrigeration, power is, making sure that people have all the medical needs met. So that was an important facet to our resilience strategy was, and in fact, we had to lobby the Board of Public Utilities to do those consolidations and elevations because they were looking at the Rebuild by Design project and they said, hey, you guys have a comprehensive plan. We don't need to make a $300 million investment, which is what the BPU put into those substations. And we said, no, no, no. And Mayor Zimmer actually had the rate council, Stephanie Brand, put on a bus, came to Hoboken, toward the city, and they rescinded their notice with PSC&G, and PSC&G built those projects. So it doesn't all just happen, and it's been an effort that through the past mayor, through past council, through this council, and onto the next mayor. I think it's important to talk about where we came from and where we're going,
Right.
because we're in that period of transition again right now.
Right. And, given the fact that you are now a business administrator as well as chief resiliency officer, you really see how our city's budget priorities are linked to our long-term existential resiliency efforts as well, which,
Right.
yeah, it gives you unique perspectives on this. And we just went through a budget cycle where we approved our budget. So this all comes together very, very currently right now.
Right.
So I wanted to just talk a little bit about you made a reference to Northwest Hoboken, what we're seeing around the area of the Resiliency Park. There's been a lot of street closures. There's been street parking disruptions, and we've also seen. Well, I think first I'm going to start on the construction that affects everybody in Hoboken, coming and going on the north and south end of Hoboken. People have experienced detours, restrictions of traffic flow by Grand Boulevard, by Jersey Avenue, by 15th Street uptown. Uh, uh, Clearly, it has made it slower coming in and out of our city. I'm sure you've heard the concerns. I know I've heard the
Yeah.
concerns. And I really do think that people are on board with the importance of rebuild by design. But I'm wondering if you could sort of give a little bit of an overview as to
Sure.
what the timeline looks like with respect to these efforts, especially in terms of these road closures on the north and south end of Hoboken, and how long you see these disruptions continuing.
I think that we can start on the north end. So 15th Street is scheduled to be reopened before Labor Day. So there's a lot
That's
of
pretty soon.
pretty soon. The challenge with these projects is there's no good time to build in our right of way. And a lot of what I think the community experienced this summer is like it's prime construction season. So we're racing and really trying to sequence and do maintenance and protection of traffic while there's less demand on city systems in the summer, and trying to get some of these streets back open for really.
And Caleb, when you say 15th Street, because there's a bunch of stuff happening on 15th Street. You're talking about 15th between Park and Garden, I assume?
Correct. Right outside of Elysian, we're going to try to get we're directing DEP to have that open before start of school. So you'll have a little bit of circulation relief there. There's work going on the Park Avenue Bridge, which is a county project. They have to replace the bridge decking. We're trying to get that done before the start of fall. That work will be done before Labor Day weekend. The work that's occurring in the north end is related to Resiliency Park, in that they're doing storm sewer separation, they're rebuilding the roadways, they're resetting curb heights, and that's so that all the rainfall from that entire neighborhood can be directed to that big underground take at Northwest Park and those 520 million gallon per day pumps. So there's two important pieces with that construction project. One is that some of that work is being directed by North Hudson Sewage Authority, and some of it's being directed by the city. Our engineering division is on site every day, and we are coordinating that work between North Hudson and between city projects. And I think that what you're going to see again for Labor Day, coming back from Labor Day, you're going to see less work and less circulation disruptions because we're constraining the number of crews that can work in that area. And we're really putting North Hudson in a place where they have to follow their MPT plans. And with every project, what the challenges of the project is that there's a lot of congested utilities below our roads. And there's subsidence that's occurred. Subsidence is basically like land is sinking. in the north end because of it used to be a marsh. And so they're having to rebuild those curb edge. It's all part of a plan to A, get rain to Northwest Park, but B, prepare for redevelopment in the north end. There's buildings that are going up. There's buildings that are planned to go up. I think that you're going to see a transformation. If you think of the south side of 15th Street, some of the new projects that have gone in, I think that you're familiar with the redevelopment plans in that area. There's going to be a linear park on 15th Street. There is going to be new redevelopment on 15th Street that complements that existing neighborhood. We can't just plop those buildings down and not address the infrastructure that underpins their success. So that's making sure that the water is working right, the sewer is working right, the stormwater is working right, that the curb elevations allow water to flow to Resiliency Park. And so where we are in time now is quite a bit of work is occurring to make ready for that transition in the north end. And so we hear it probably as much as you hear it. I just want to talk about the resources that the city has available. So we have a joint meeting with our engineering division, police department, our communications, traffic, with a parking utility. And we go through and we publish a weekly newsletter that talks about these projects. We post information on the city's website for residents to have access to information. All of those efforts, I think that we recognize are not good enough. And so some of the things you're also going to start seeing with our city projects is signage with QR codes to scan. What are we doing here? What does this look like? And then most importantly, how do you get in touch with people? So you have my contact information. You can email the business administrator's office. Our engineering division is available to contact. Our police department is very responsive on circulation issues. I know you've had a number of issues with the Madison Street project specifically. We are doing our best to troubleshoot those. It's a living, growing city. We have to make investments in our future. Those investments have temporary impacts and in some cases disproportionate impacts on neighborhoods because there's a necessity to invest in infrastructure before we do future redevelopment.
Caleb, two quick comments. One, I'm sure the folks at Elysian Charter School, faculty, staff, and parents will be happy to know that 15th Street will be open for first day of school. That's great. Second, if folks do want to send an email to the city or contact the city, I know we're working on upgrading the city's website, and that's
Correct.
But in the interim, what would be a good email, and I can put it into the comments of this discussion so that
So
people can click
if
on
you
that.
want, if they want to send something that goes directly to our engineering division does all of our right-of-way permitting. They do inspections. They're responsible for coordinating maintenance and protection of traffic.
Mhm.
There's an email that will go to our water engineer, our municipal engineer, our assistant municipal engineer. It's just engineering@HobokenNJ.gov.
Engineering@HobokenNJ.gov. Okay.
And then more broadly, if you're unsure who to contact about a specific issue, my email is cstratton@HobokenNJ.gov. And I'm responsible for not just the engineering division, but all of our department directors, making sure we're rolling in the right direction and being responsive. And then the last thing I'll mention is we are doing a conversion towards a centralized 311 system. We are implementing a new website design. I think that you've probably seen, maybe been exposed to some of the changes.
Yep. And there's a survey going out there, which I've linked in my newsletter, which I can put into here as well, where you can give your feedback as to what you'd like to see in the upgraded city's website.
Correct.
Yep.
So during COVID, we tried to build very quickly a digital environment to access city services. And we did that kind of ad hoc way. And it was good enough for a period of time. And so what the Tyler Technologies conversion is doing is we're building that same digital environment, but it's cohesive. It will be, if you need to get a building permit, you can interface with that technology, zoning permit, community development, parking is going to be under that same structure. So while we've built tools that enable access to residents, they're not performing in a manner that I think best serves the public. And so that's the big conversion that we're trying to achieve. is yes, City Hall is open for business. You can come here and engage with staff. But if you want to do something from your home, we want to provide that same suite of services and customer service through that new technology.
Now, Caleb, I think you talked about specifically with timelines and goals with respect to the north end of Hoboken and Rebuild by Design. Could you talk a little bit about the south end by Jersey Avenue, Marin,
Sure.
what's going on over there, and what the time frame looks over there?
So Jersey Ave reopened ahead of schedule, and DEP will be moving to Marin Boulevard. They're coordinating with a long-slip project. For your viewers that might not be aware, the long-slip heavy rail project is filling a canal, which was an entry point from Sandy, but then also elevating new heavy rail tracks going into Hoboken Terminal. There's a lot of work going on at Hoboken Terminal. Some of it's public, some of it's private. So the Marin closure, we're expecting to be sometime in the next 2 weeks. DEP is still seeking permits from Jersey City for a rerouting of a bike lane and infrastructure from Marin, because that's the connection point for those two facilities between Jersey City and Hoboken to Grove Street. And we're doing community outreach on Grove Street to try and pin down those plans. In fact, I probably have an email in my inbox related to that closure that I need to address at some point today. That closure will be for about 3 months. We do not expect the Marin closure to have as significant of an impact as the Jersey Ave closure. DEP has on their website the maintenance and protection of traffic plans. There was a community outreach meeting that was recorded that's on their website. The DEP has presented to the city council and the city council subcommittee on those closure plans. And really it's a two-step sequence at the south end of the city. Jersey, Grove, and Marin all have to have gates built across them. Jersey Ave Phase A is done. They are going to start Marin Phase A, and then there's also going to be a Phase B where they're coming back and installing basically railroad tracks so the gates can cross the street. I don't have a hard schedule on Jersey Ave and Grove because it's predicated on the success and implementation of the Marin closure. But it'll be generally rolling 3-month closures across those three roadways until both of those phases of work are done. The entire Rebuild by Design project is expected to be completed by the fall of 2027. And that's the goal line that we're working towards. In my mind, I would like to have it to be done before the fall of 27. So we have assets in place that if we have another hurricane, we can deploy those assets. So it is a short-term race against time to alleviate circulation impacts, and it is a long-term race against time so that we can prevent the next storm. There, last week we had Aaron that came up the coast. There was a lot of coastal erosion. That storm turned and didn't make an impact in New Jersey. The running statistics right now are there's either a hurricane that impacts or makes landfall in New Jersey 1.5 times a year. So what we consider coastal erosion, high winds, riptides to be a coastal impact for New Jersey. In fact, there's some of the southern beaches that had erosion. There's been a loss of federal funding for beach replenishment. So those are considerable issues when you talk about like the economic security of New Jersey as a state. Tourism is a big deal along the coast. We're concerned about those statistics because if we don't complete Rebuild by Design on time and on budget, we're still vulnerable to coastal storms. Right. So we don't hit that 90% reduction until Rebuild by Design is complete. So that's why my office wearing the resiliency hat, but then also my office wearing the business administrator hat is really pushing resources to our different departments that are helping us implement these projects. And what it comes down to is we're doing the best to compress a generational investment in a short period of time. And it does have impacts to the community and to circulation. Those impacts are temporary, albeit they're all challenging. I commute to work and I've been dealing with the same traffic that many of our residents have over the summer. And it's really definitely a challenge.
Now you referenced some of the construction of the seawalls, the resist features, and we've seen some of the concrete being built, particularly in the north end. I think we're seeing some of it in the south end as well on the Jersey Avenue area, that kind of thing. I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about how those seawalls connect and work along with the green spaces and the under, like how, again, people are seeing the traffic impacts, uh, and I think they understand in principle what's happening, but maybe you could just be a little more specific about what these seawalls are going to do and how they're going to work as part of the plan.
So the seawalls at the north and south connect into high points. So at the south side, they're extending all the way back to connect into the Palisades to a high point in topography. Let's call that 15 feet above sea level. And then they traverse all the way to Washington Street, where Washington Street is also elevated to 15 feet above sea level. And the reason why it's being built at the south and the north and not right on the waterfront is that that's where the floodwater came in during Sandy. So we're building a contiguous system. So essentially, you have a bathtub. If you are thinking about the anchor points of the Palisades to the west, the seawall in the south, Stevens Point in the middle, and then the northern alignment connecting back into the Palisades into Washington Street, you're creating a perfect circle of protection that is unbroken in water infiltrating it from the Atlantic Ocean, which is what storm surge is. And what that does is all the interior drainage for that area has to be managed. And so let's say we have a hurricane, we're a storm surge event, and we get 3 inches of rain. The parks, the storm sewer systems, the rain gardens, the pumps, they all manage water internal to that bathtub in the event of rain and have the added benefit of when we don't have a coastal storm surge, but we have a high precipitation event, a heavy rainfall event, all those systems still work. So they work to balance and complement each other, but they are also, the term I use is they have independent utility. So the rainfall flood projects perform for us when we need them. The seawall project will perform for us when we need it to, but they both integrate together. When you marry those two things, it's the federal government recognizes that you've built a levee system. And what the take home for your constituents is that we will be reducing flood insurance rates once the seawall project is complete. And the interior drainage we've built and the seawalls that we're building will result in a reduction in flood insurance rates. And I think a lot of people during Sandy saw that they're carrying flood insurance, but it didn't provide very much value to those insured homeowners, other than it allows you to make transactions in the floodplain. You can get a federally backed mortgage. But more importantly, there's a direct risk reduction, and then there's an indirect reduction in insured expenses. And that's why we built those two systems together. And actually, Hoboken is a little further ahead of the curve than a lot of these other cities that are building these projects, New York City specifically, in that they haven't really tackled the rainfall events, which have been more frequent and more impactful. And New York City is, we've been meeting with them, and we actually are providing probably on a monthly basis tours of our projects that we built to show and say we've demonstrated success in reducing the extent of rainfall flooding, the duration of rainfall flooding, the impact of rainfall flooding. These are the types of projects that our community has supported. We've built, we're managing them, they're effective. And then we have the data from North Hudson Sewage Authority backing that up that, yeah, we're hitting that 90% threshold. And that's how those two projects kind of work and
Yeah.
integrate together.
So let's turn to Resilient City Park, the city's biggest park, city's biggest resilience park, and the pump station that's being built there. I'm wondering, there's been a lot of construction going on this summer adjacent to Resilient City Park over on Adams,
Yep.
over on around the park, the blocks adjacent to it. I'm wondering if you can talk about the purpose of that construction and how it's going to maximize the efficiency of Resilient City Park and what impacts people, what benefits people are going to see when this work is done. Again, people are seeing, uh, no parking signs, people are seeing road closures, people are seeing traffic diversions. It's
Right.
frustrating. I think it would be helpful. And you talked about how, at some point there might be little scannable bugs where people could see, what's going on here. But I do think that maybe just a short discussion for the folks that I represent in that neighborhood, like what's happening there. And I know that they're already seeing the benefits of the park. I know they're seeing less flooding in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
I know they love having Alessios. They have the splash pad, which I'm going to show a picture of. I mean, the park has transformed the neighborhood, but again, the day-to-day inconveniences are real, and I'm wondering if you could just talk about that a little bit.
So when we set, there was a master plan, and in the north end. So I'm talking about from Madison over to Adams, and I'm talking about from really like 12th Street up to 15th Street.
Yep.
And that master plan said that we are going to separate, so not have a combined sewer in that neighborhood. We're going to bring all the rainfall from that neighborhood to the Northwest Park, and it will go into that 1 million gallon storage tank, and then it'll be pumped gallon per day pumps. When Northwest Park was built, that was really what I would consider to be phase one of that master plan. So phase two and phase three are North Hudson Sewage Authority. The work that you're seeing right now, they have to install all the pumps. They're doing that right now. They may be complete with doing the pumps. They have to build a force main, which brings the water from that tank out to the Hudson River. And then they have to separate the sewer system, which is building new catch basins and pipes so that if rainfall falls in that neighborhood, it gets diverted to the Northwest Park. And order of magnitude investment by North Hudson, it's north of $100 million. I have the numbers, but we're talking about significant pipes, catch basins, pumps that are going in, and the purpose is, that neighborhood's going to be dry. I mean, I can't think of a circumstance where we're going to have a rainfall event that you're going to see flooding in the north end
Yeah.
once those projects are complete.
I actually saw Richard Wolf on Washington Street yesterday and shook his hand as I was walking by. He was sitting on a bench. He's I think he's still the current director of North Hudson Sewage
It's
Authority.
the executive director, and
Executive
and
director.
they so the North Hudson Sewage Authority and the city of Hoboken carry two different burdens. North Hudson Sewage Authority is under EPA mandate to limit combined sewer overflows to the Hudson River, which is an environmental protection issue. City of Hoboken has been given a mandate to reduce flood risk, which is a FEMA related issue. So what we're able to do working with North Hudson Sewage Authority is basically put two different capital stacks together. I can pull money for risk reduction. Dr. Wolf can pull money for environmental protection, and we're able to build out those projects without necessarily a direct impact to Hoboken taxpayers. So a lot of the work that you're seeing is disruptive, but I think that it would be more so if it was also done without the federal assistance programs, specifically the state revolving loan fund with the state of New Jersey, where we have either reduced financing fees or actual grants that go into these projects that are getting built. And these are not, I mean, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars of savings
Mhm.
in the investments that we have to make to pull those projects together.
Um, you talked briefly about the flooding around ShopRite and the Madison Street infrastructure project. And when I was first elected in 2019, the residents over at 901 Madison Street were like, Phil, what's going on with the Madison Street infrastructure project? We've been waiting for years to get this done. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I live on 11th between Park and Garden, and I did not know this was like an existential project for the people who live on and around Madison Street between 9th and 11th. You still see the sandbags outside the shop, right? They haven't taken them away yet. And this morning I mentioned I saw there was a nixle from the city announcing that Madison Street is now open, which is great. There's still some traffic diversions and adjustments over at 9th and 10th Street, and a closure at 9th Street. I'm wondering if you could just talk just a little bit about that project, how it's going, timelines for folks in that neighborhood.
Sure.
I know we've been keeping in touch with the property managers in those buildings and letting them know what's going on, but I do think that people may generally be interested to know uh, the purpose of that and the status of that.
So my briefing that I received this morning is that that project will be resolved by October. So there's
Uh-huh.
about another month left. Um, I would just want to talk about the purpose and need for the project. So the purpose of that project is to basically rebuild that road segment focused on Madison Street between 9th and 11th, but then also having to tie it back in on the side streets. And really, if you can imagine, we picked up the road by 18 inches to establish a new finished grade. But what occurred below that is that we rebuilt a sewer that was pitched in the wrong direction. So the sewer was pitched in a way that it funneled water to 9th and Madison. And because of the low topography there, you just created ponding. And it was always an indicator during rain events if we're going to have bad flooding, like that's where it would start. So now that sewer is pitched in a different direction below the grade. and the grade is elevated, and we rebuilt the water mains below it, and we rebuilt the curbs and the street elevation. So it's again, we talked about generational investments. This has been an issue in Hoboken for 100 years.
Yeah.
And in the course of a year, we're not fixing, we are resolving some of the major issues. There's not a certain, like, if we get 8 inches of rain in one storm, there's still going to be flooding around Hoboken. But what we expect with the different parks, investments, pumps, and regrading, that may only be for one tide cycle. And if you go to any neighboring community, you're going to see water that's still on their roads through that tide cycle. And we are really, with the Madison Street project specifically, addressing an acute pain point that has been problematic for that neighborhood for decades.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the downstream negative is those daily disruptions for people that live there. I mean, we have friends that live in that neighborhood. I lived at Third and Clinton. You get familiar with different neighborhoods, and I think that what's tough is like walking around, getting your kids to and from. Well, I have 6 and 2-year-old to and from preschool, going grocery shopping, finding parking. I know it's been really challenging for that neighborhood, but there really is a purpose to those projects, and there really is a need for them to be addressed. And that's we're in that moment right now that's challenging.
Well, October, again, that does not sound that far from now. And I honestly thought it was going to be done next year. So that sounds, I could be wrong, but I think that's ahead of schedule to complete this.
There are elements that were behind
Yeah.
schedule. So there's well, we talked about it before, but there's duct banks that were put in as part of the substation that were just basically put on top of North Hudson's infrastructure. So we had to
Yeah.
move the duct banks, rebuild North Hudson's infrastructure, which is on piles. It was just challenging to go through that process. And I can confirm if I'm not correct on that, but that's my understanding of
That sounds good. Yeah.
wrapping that up
Yeah.
soon.
Yep. That's great. So you'd mentioned earlier that when all done, we're going to be 90% protected as a city on rebuild by design, in addition to these local issues like Madison Street infrastructure fixing. I'm wondering how residents can, best way for folks to stay engaged and informed as construction continues in all of these areas. We gave contact information for specific questions. I know the city's got a construction website that has a lot of information. We might want to put a link to that in my comments. But I do think there are occasional public meetings. There's opportunities for people to speak. I know there was a recent Rebuild by Design meeting a few weeks ago. I was out of town, couldn't attend it. But if you're a resident and you want to stay involved, you want to stay in touch, you want to keep informed about these issues, how would you suggest folks to do that?
I mean, the most straightforward way is to sign up for the city's Nixle notifications.
Mhm.
I dropped 2 links in the chat. One is to sign up for Nixle. The second is go to our construction website. You can sign up for an update that we push out every week. I would say that those are the two most direct ways to kind of know what's going on. They can obviously harass you and me.
Oh, they will. In a nice way.
Which is part of our responsibilities.
Right.
And then I think that the other tool that we use pretty often is that we will post on our website. So in addition to Nixles, we'll post on our website, post on Facebook. I think you can follow the city of Hoboken on Twitter. We try to do we are always trying to do kind of like a multifaceted approach because there's a lot of noise, to be honest. It's tough to track everything.
Yeah.
I know that we push out a lot of information, and sometimes it's difficult to actively manage that information flow, but those are the resources that we have available.
Yep.
And then always there's obviously the city council meetings where there's always a portion for new business. You can ask council members questions. You can ask the administration questions. I'm on the dais with the council, trying to be accountable from the mayor's office. So those are opportunities there.
Yeah. Well, Caleb, I know how busy, I mean, anyone listening to this knows how busy you are, and all the things that you do for the city. And I want to thank you for what you're doing. This is mission critical stuff, and no one is more on top of it, frankly, than you. So thank you for that. Thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for making the time and joining me today. I'm going to be doing a few other community updates, but thanks for returning to Coffee with Cohen. Really appreciate your time.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I think it's very important for our directors, for the mayor's office, for my office. You know, we're in the customer service business, and I think that sometimes if we're not able to communicate or we don't do things like this where we're just having a conversation about what's going on in the city, it's a disservice to our residents. And I just would want to put out there that our staff tries very, very hard, our police department, our fire department, our public safety officials, to try and do these difficult challenges in the safest way possible, and doing so in a professional way, meaning like studying the traffic and circulation routes. We're really doing the best that we can. Sometimes that isn't good enough, but we want to keep trying very, very hard. So thank you for the opportunity today, and I look forward to chatting again soon.
Great, Caleb. Enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
All right. So next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about Willow Avenue. I was mentioning the current state of our Northwest Resiliency Park. Here's a picture of us at the ribbon cutting at the fields from a few years ago. And this is a picture from this summer of kids enjoying the splash park. I was out there with my daughter enjoying lunch just this weekend and enjoying watching the kids enjoy the park. Willow Avenue Vision Zero upgrade plans. So we didn't even talk about Vision Zero. One of the things we've been investing in as a city is infrastructure to make our streets safer. And Willow Avenue between 11th and 16th Streets is one of the city's busiest and most crash-prone corridors. This project is an effort between Hudson County and the city of Hoboken. Willow Avenue is a Hudson County road to make Willow Avenue safer and more inviting and appropriate for all folks that are on that road, including drivers, pedestrians, cyclists, our seniors at Fox Hill over at 13th and Willow, school children over at Wallace School. This is one of the slides for design proposals. Here's one of two options. This one has a bike track, the green line, protected bike lane in front of the Wallace School on the west side and also on the east side. And you can see how that would work. And then here's another one proposal where it has the protected bike lane all on the west side. These are two possible plans that are being considered. We've had a number of community meetings, online surveys. Not only will it have protected bike lane, you can see the street will be more narrow, which will naturally slow traffic, because anyone who's been down that street knows it's a very wide street. There will be improved lighting, there will be improved crosswalks, wider curb extensions, new signal timing, pedestrian traffic calming features in front of the Wallace School. All of this stuff reflects a lot of research into what makes street and cars safer for drivers and pedestrians. You can explore these design concepts in a link that I'm going to share in my chat, so you can check that out. 15th Street roadway repair. One of the things that Caleb and I did not talk about, we talked about how the street closure at 15th by the garage over between Park and Garden is going to be ending by Labor Day, which is great news. This is the other side, west of Willow of 15th Street. Folks have been complaining to me for years about how dangerous this street is. It's really difficult to go faster than 5 miles per hour on this street because of the huge grade variations. Years of neglect of this industrial neighborhood roadway. Finally, work is beginning with respect to a 15th Street roadway improvement project. This is a look of what it will look like when it is completed. This project is expected to be completed November 2025 to elevate and reconstruct the roadway and sidewalks between Madison and Adams, resurface between 15th and Park, between Willow and Park, in addition to fixing potholes and uneven pavement with lots of Vision Zero safety features and resiliency upgrades. Uh, ADA compliant ramps, flashing beacons at the crosswalks, improved lighting. This will be the first phase of a green circuit for our bikes. You can see it's protected bike lane with a barrier between the road and the bikes. This is some of the new buildings that you can look forward to that Kayla was talking about. The resiliency infrastructure will support all of this area when it gets constructed. A lot of that is happening right now. Construction will begin when it begins. 15th Street will be closed between Madison and Jefferson. Detour signs will be posted. You can read more about the project in the link that I'm going to share. I mentioned that Hoboken is going to be working on a new municipal website. Caleb referred to it. As a councilman, I've worked to support the investments to upgrade our municipal website, to make it more user-friendly, make navigation easier, expand access to city services. Caleb described, how you could do one-stop stop on a zoning application and things like that instead of having to go to many different places to get something done. The city has launched a website to seek feedback from the community and from businesses and visitors about what features you'd like to see, what kind of functionality and navigation you'd like to see on the site. You can share your feedback by completing the survey by Monday, September 1st, 7 p.m. I'm going to have a link to that site in my comments. Labor Day weekend, Port Authority is going to be closing the path station for urgent repairs. Hoboken Path Station is going to be closed this Thursday from 11:59 p.m. through Tuesday, September 2nd, 5 a.m. for urgent track repairs. You may remember in February the path was closed for a month. A big part of that closure, not all of it, but was to install a interlocking system. This interlocking allows trains to switch tracks and access platforms and was a critical element of the work that was done when the path station was closed in February. There have been some issues with respect to the reliability of the interlocking system. The platform which supported it has not been as stable as it should be. This is going to be addressed during this closure. Port Authority had a call with me and some of my council colleagues last week where they talked about their plan in place to make sure that the interlocking was going to be done and reliable by Tuesday, September 2nd, which is going to be really important for everyone who relies on the path. And during the closure from Thursday, essentially midnight until Tuesday, 5 a.m., these are going to be some alternative transportation options that are going to be provided by Port Authority that they worked on. There's going to be increased path service between 33rd and World Trade Center. There's going to be a free shuttle bus between Hoboken, Newport, and Exchange Place, where Hoboken riders can connect to the path. Service from Jersey City will be unaffected by this closure of the Hoboken Path Station. There's New York Waterway. You can ride for $3 on uptown here at 14th Street from the terminal. So you can do that. You have to buy a special Path Ferry ticket on New York Waterway app or at the ticket counter and show New York Waterway staff a Path Fare card. On Friday, this Friday, there's going to be additional peak service every 10 minutes from New Jersey Transit Ferry Terminal to Midtown and Downtown, with service operating every 20 minutes during non-peak hours. These details are on this slide. There's going to be a regular bus service, but it will be supplemented. There's not going to be cross-honoring. You're still going to have to pay your regular fare for New Jersey Transit, but there should be significantly added service on the 126. There will be cross-honoring on light rail and New Jersey Transit, And again, these customer mitigation options were described in a call that I had with Port Authority leadership last week, and I'm sharing it with you here. Stevens Institute of Technology got a nice reach out from the university last week asking me to share with you the fact that Stevens graduate studies are now going to be offering discounted tuition to Hoboken residents. So if you're interested, I'm going to have a link uh, in my comments where you can check out what's available. There's actually staff, dedicated folks at Stevens who can guide you through the process, help match your interests with the programs that best fit your goals, whether you're interested in making a change in your career or switching professions, or you just want to gain new knowledge and information. Stevens Institute is a world-class facility, and this is an exclusive offer just for Hoboken residents. If you want to learn more about it, I'm going to have a link in my chat. You can check that out. And finally, on a happy note, last Wednesday night, I was honored to make a presentation to Marilyn and Joel Freiser. There's Joel, there's Marilyn. Uh, they have been residents of Hoboken for over 50 years. They have made extraordinary contributions to our community. Joel at the Hudson School, at the United Synagogue of Hoboken, Marilyn at the Public Library, and in many other institutions that they touched the lives of so many people in Newark, New Jersey, in New York City. Joel and Marilyn are really an extraordinary couple, and these are their daughters. We're so proud to honor them. They had a large contingent of folks who were out there Wednesday night, and it was really a joyful thing for folks to appreciate a very, very special couple. So I want to congratulate Joel and Marilyn Freiser on all that they've accomplished, for their recognition from the city of Hoboken, and how honored I was to present the proclamation to such a deserving pair of wonderful people. I'm gonna also have a link in my chat. If you want to read the proclamation, you can check it out, the one that Marilyn is holding right there. So that is all I have for today. Joe Rivera, thank you for attending. I saw that you waved at me. I appreciate your joining me as usual. It's great to have you with us. Uh, Caleb Stratton, thank you again for making the time on a very, very busy, shortened holiday week to join me. And thanks to all of you for being with me at this my 111th Coffee with Cohen event. I look forward to the next one in a coffee shop in September. Stay tuned for that. If you want to ask me any questions, you can always email me at hobokenphil@gmail. I try to respond to all of your requests. Be well, enjoy the holiday weekend, the last official week of summer, and take care. Thanks so much, everybody. It's been great to join you today. Bye bye.